All right, wonderful. Welcome to this Ask the Expert session at Ignite. This is Ask Us Anything about Microsoft compliance. We're looking at information protection and governance, insider risk, compliance management. All of the products are available to you. A few quick housekeeping items as we get started. First, to engage with the experts that we have from across the Microsoft compliance team, use the chat that's available as part of this event. To be able to ask your question. Most of the questions we'll try and respond via text. A handful of the questions, just depending on time, we'll be able to put to the panel, and you'll get to get a more expanded version of that answer live. Upvote your questions using the like button. Let us know that this is a question that you might have too, so we can make sure that we're focusing on the things that are the most important to you. From an etiquette perspective, just realize the session may be recorded with the recording published later. Please help our moderators by abiding to the code of conduct, not spamming, things like that. And like all the sessions at Ignite, this is covered by the Microsoft Code of Conduct. So with that, why don't we meet the experts? I am Wayne Anderson. I'm your moderator today, the Security and Compliance Architect from the Microsoft 365 Center of Excellence. Let's start with Joseph Davis.
Hi, I'm Joseph Davis. I'm the Executive Security Advisor for the Americas in Healthcare, formerly a CISO, and here to advise our healthcare customers.
You're on mute.
Hey folks, it's Adrian Marras. I'm a PM on the compliance team, specifically focused on the products in the discover and respond pillar. So these are things like core eDiscovery, advanced eDiscovery, and audit. Glad to be here.
Ryan, on mute.
Let's try that again. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Compton, Product Marketing Manager on the compliance team.
Great. Nir.
Hey, my name is Nir Endler, and I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Microsoft Information Protection and Compliance Customer Experience team.
And Sanjay.
Hey everyone, Sanjay Kadambi. I work in the product marketing team in compliance with a focus on Microsoft information protection.
Wonderful. And Roberto.
Hey everyone, I'm Roberto Iglesias. I'm a product manager with the information governance and records management team.
Fantastic. So with that, let's just jump right into it. Already have a handful of questions coming in. And Roberto, why don't we start with you? There's a lot of information that's going out there around information governance. We've seen discussion of records management already here at this Ignite. What's new in information and records management that's going live this week?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for asking, Wayne. We announced a lot of things, and we will post the link on the chat so that you can access the link to the blog of everything that we announced with information governance and records management. There's a lot of new things that we announced. First, we announced retention policy support for Yammer messages. And so you will be able to target those retention policies just like you do with Teams now, either to the user messages or the community messages. We also announced the retention support for Teams meeting recordings. If you missed, there was a blog post today announcing our new vision for Microsoft Stream. And as part of that, in the next few months, the recordings that you make on Teams will start moving towards SharePoint and OneDrive to be stored there. And so as they do, you can use all of the great features we already have there for applying retention, but we're also targeting new ways to auto-label them. We also announced the new regulatory record label. For those of you using records management, the regulatory record label will be an evolution of what the record label is, a different type of label that allows advanced immutability scenarios. So for those like financial customers or government customers that need to ensure that no metadata is changed, that once applied, nobody can undeclare that record, all of that will be part of what you can do with it. Additionally, we announced integration with SharePoint Syntax, which is the new first product that comes out of what we had called Project Cortex, and their document understanding models, which are the way that you can create machine teaching models to be able to categorize your content and extract metadata out of that content. And so you will also be able to apply a retention label. We also announced the feedback loop for our own Microsoft 365 compliance trainable classifiers that we had announced at last Ignite. And some of the feedback we got from customers is once you publish that classifier, you wanted to be able to fine tune it. So now we have the trainable classifiers with being able to provide the feedback loop, starting with Exchange. And then finally, but one of our most exciting announcements is that as part of our new integrations for ecosystem overall, in Microsoft 365 compliance, we've significantly increased the number of data connectors that allow you to establish a connector and constantly bring data in to Microsoft 365 to be able to leverage all of the compliance solutions. So we announced that we will get up to 25 pre-built data connectors today in the Compliance Center, including some from our partners from GlobalNet and Telemessage. And you'll be able to access all of those right now in your Compliance Center.
Fantastic. So, Iram, there's a great question that's come in kind of in a couple of flavors from several different people right now. And, last year, Microsoft went to Ignite 2019, and it was a whole new model across a variety of compliance products. More integration, more visibility across the products, more visibility across unstructured data. And eDiscovery was one of the places that we really talked about shifting our approach and really enhancing our features. Some of the things that we've talked about in Teams, we've delivered. Some of those things remain roadmap. Can you help us understand what have we delivered and where are we still working?
Yeah, great question. Teams by far is getting probably the most significant increase in use. And it's probably from a lot of the folks, our customers kind of working from home. So the signal is loud and clear that customers are looking for more discoverability of that content. And so some of the things that we talked about last year and just recently are going to be things like being able to identify which teams a user is a member of. Right? Let's say that you're doing an investigation and you have a person of interest and you'd like to know where the sources are that contain content for this person. This was a feature that we released just I think it was just around Ignite last year. Some of the new things that we're talking about for Teams, which are really interesting specifically, is modern attachments. And at least this is what we've known to love them by internally at Microsoft. Linked content is another way people refer them. But generally, it's when you send any sort of file in a Teams message, you'll notice that it's not like it used to be with legacy email attachments where the file was actually embedded as part of the message. The link is what's actually sent, right? So the live document is still sitting on the network, but there's a link that's attached to that message. And so what customers have said is whenever you do an investigation and you're trying to gather all this information, including link content, that can be pretty painful. So we announced at Ignite this year the ability to collect that content as part of the eDiscovery process. So in advanced eDiscovery now, when you say, hey, I want to go collect Wayne's content, you can press a box and it'll make sure that it'll include anything that's linked by Wayne as well. So it'll go out and harvest all of the live content documents that were attached in Teams messages. Really excited about that. We extended the coverage to go into review as well. So if you collect that content, put it into a case, we'll show you all of the linked documents right next to the messages so that you can keep track of things. And then let's say that you want to go use another partner of ours downstream after eDiscovery, the export will preserve those groups as well. So the load file will keep track of which linked content belongs to each message. But it's exciting.
Fantastic. Great things to come. Plenty to watch for. Nir, we've got a great question around GDPR, and I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit. Security, privacy, costs, these are all considerations that an enterprise has to look at. And it's a constant balancing act, right? There's administration costs, and then there's cost of doing things like data retention and looking at the way that different settings impact productivity. Can you share with us some of the lessons that we've learned, especially around GDPR that's been in the market for a little while, on how to use Microsoft information protection and really get the most out of it for the organization?
Yeah. Microsoft information protection today works. Maybe let's call it's an evolution of what was known as Azure Information Protection. First, it's focused all about GDPR. We would like to allow customers to understand their data classification, to identify sensitive information where it's located, if it's in the cloud or outside the cloud. It's not something that is bundled specific to the data that need to be stored in Office 365, if it's in SharePoint or OneDrive, in file shares, if it's in non-Microsoft Cloud applications. And we give the customers and the compliance admins the ability to discover sensitive information that specifically might impact them from a GDPR perspective and protect this type of information. If it's with restricting access, if it's with labeling it and ensuring that this data will not leak outside. This is more about the product aspect of this and how the product is designed. In addition, from the product and to ensure that it doesn't that it can address any GDPR compliance regulations. So the product doesn't collect any privacy information about the data that is being classified or auto labeling. The audit logs doesn't include any privacy information. All the users that are using and applying the labels, the data is being audited into AIP Analytics and Activity Explorer, and with that, it being stored without any specific information that can violate GDPR from whatever the customer is holding, and in terms of the documents that are being tracked and the documents that are being classified as contain sensitive information.
Fantastic. So Joseph Davis, one of the things that our customers have really asked about today in some of our other sessions is around data loss protection, right? Implementing DLP and healthcare, financial services. These are areas where data loss prevention and protecting the information that the enterprise has are critical. In healthcare specifically, we see a lot of customers deploying policies and they're recognizing information. We see increasing maturity. Does a healthcare organization really have to have DLP, or can they just deploy policies in the cloud?
Oh, I think DLP is required everywhere in a hybrid approach, right? Because data is going to sneak out as long as you have email, or as long as individuals are using technologies like Zoom and Teams and other technologies where there could be chat, there could be web upload, there could be email attachments. I think data loss prevention is a great way to help users determine, what is it that I'm sending? Could it be catastrophic if I sent this to the wrong recipient? So what especially endpoint DLP gives them the ability to do, whether it's healthcare or any other industry, is to prompt the user and say, look, this looks like sensitive information based on the machine learning that the system has done over time. This looks like sensitive information, and are you sure you want to be sending this to a third party? Now, if the answer is yes, we facilitate that collaboration with Azure Information Protection so that only the recipient is going to be able to, use that information, and it stops with that recipient if there's a do not forward on it or if there's a read only on it.
Yeah, one of the questions that came a moment ago, and Nir, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well as yourself, Joseph. From a business perspective, Joseph, when you've got endpoint DLP and you've got enterprises wanting to look at this kind of bring your own device strategy, what are some of the high points and some of the low points that you would really kind of put in front of a security leader to really put some thought into?
Right. So my recommendation around bring your own device is make sure you're looking closely at into mobile application management rather than allowing the data to just come down natively on that person's mobile device or basically a laptop, etc. Unless that laptop or mobile device or Surface Pro is registered, mobile device management in Intune. And with registering it, there's so much more that you can do with MDM in determining what applications are on that endpoint, what hardware is going on with that endpoint, etc. With mobile application management, you're able to have an encrypted secure container within the application and apply organizational policies to the specific app instead of the entire device.
Fantastic. So, Nir, that's part of it, right? The business strategy of where to plug in the DLP, but at the same time, you've got to have the technology to tie the pieces together and help the organization turn around and deploy the capability in the enterprise. How can an organization like a healthcare organization, a financial services organization, deploy DLP successfully in a bring your own device strategy or the shift to bring your own device?
Yeah, Wayne. So thank you for describing this that clearly. When we talk about DLP and the DLP strategy that we have in Microsoft, we have two sides for this specific capability. We have endpoint side that is indeed available, is integrated as part of the operation system, and is working seamlessly to detect sensitive information and to send audit logs and block or warn on specific activities. But with that, we know that this type of devices do require to be connected today to Azure Active Directory or to be connected to hybrid Active Directory and to Azure Active Directory. And we know that bring your own devices are part of the game as part of what customers are doing today, even more relevant during this COVID time. So our DLP offering doesn't just include the endpoint capabilities, but also service side capabilities. That doesn't have any dependency with if you're coming from a bring your own device or you are using your mobile device or whatever platform that you are using. Once you access the service, there is this layer of the data loss prevention capabilities that do inspect the activity that you are doing, and based on it will protect the data from leaving your organization and your perimeter, although this is the cloud perimeter. But for that, you don't need to deploy anything. You are using SharePoint, you are using OneDrive, the data is stored in Microsoft services, you are sending mails with Exchange Online. All this data is protected with our DLP capabilities without deploying anything beside policies as part of the M365 compliance portal. Now, taking it back into endpoint DLP, bring your own device is something that we are looking to expand in the future and to remove this dependency with a specific organization joined to AAD devices.
Fantastic. So, it really kind of brings up thoughts about kind of the underpinnings, right? In order to have DLP, you really have to have a good classification and labeling strategy to help you figure out what you're going to protect in the first place. Sanjay, great question that we've got here in the chat, asking about how close Microsoft is to accomplishing that Microsoft information protection vision, right? We've had several shifts, AIP to MIP. Now we're expanding what's in MIP. How close are we?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question, right? And it's very foundational. So for us, let's, for the benefit of the whole audience, step back a little bit and think about what is that MIP vision that, Bo, the questioner, is asking about. I mean, essentially what we're looking to do is to provide our customers a comprehensive, built-in, intelligent, and yet a unified solution for information protection. And when we say that, it includes data discovery, classification, protection, and data loss, right? So it's a pretty grand, it's a pretty comprehensive vision we have. And we realize that in the market, there actually is a really strong need for it, because what we find is that the alternatives that a lot of our customers have is a patchwork of solutions. There are solution providers who do either data discovery alone, but not really into labeling and protection, or they do DLP alone. Or even if they do a few different things across the stack, they are focused only on a few locations, data locations, right? So they're able to do well on-premises, but they really don't have a great solution when it comes to core Office apps or Microsoft 365 services like Teams and SharePoint. So what we, we want you to expect from us, from Microsoft Information Protection, that comprehensive, yet a unified solution where you're able to go to a single pane of glass, a single admin console, and be able to consistently deploy your classification and protection policies across all your data locations. And so, we are definitely very well on our path to sort of delivering against that. And really, what you see would depend a bit on your commercial customer or your government customer as well. But one thing I do want to tell you is that the big shift from AIP to MIP, if you think about what Azure Information Protection was about, it gave you, it was the predominant product was the client plugin for Office apps on Windows, right? What you get with Microsoft Information Protection is a lot broader. So if your organization's not on Pro Plus, yes, you can continue with the unified labeling client that we have for Windows, but otherwise you've got native built-in labeling and protection experience across all the Office apps platforms, right? And so that's really the benefit of going to MIP. And we know that if you have built-in labeling, it has a lot of benefits both for you as an organization, as an admin. You don't have to buy this patchwork of solutions and these licenses. You don't have to maintain these plugins, but you actually get a more cost-effective and easier to maintain built-in solution with MIP. But at the same time, please note that a lot of products that you use as part of Azure Information Protection, that whether it's the on-premises scanner, those are they continue to be part of Microsoft Information Protection. It's that superset is MIP, right? And all of the solutions you know and love are all part of that from AIP. So we are well on our path, and depending on whether you're commercial or gov customer, you would see us at different stages.
Great. Iram, I actually want to come to you for a question that we got in some sessions with customers earlier. There's eDiscovery, when you've got a moderate size organization, there's built-in workflow, some great tools in there, but as you become an organization at scale, there's often other tools that you have in the environment that are part of the eDiscovery landscape. And many of our questions are bringing this up in customer meetings and discussions with Microsoft around the Ignite event. APIs. Where are we going? Are we going to be able to tie eDiscovery products from Microsoft with third parties in these enterprise environments?
Yeah, absolutely. The engagement from customers has been phenomenal. I mean, the creativity on how to build integrated experiences with the tools that you were mentioning, Wayne, is something that comes up pretty often. So we announced recently that we have an API for advanced eDiscovery in beta. It's in the Graph beta. So if you go to the Graph site, and we can push some information to you later, but there you'll see the documentation with the calls that are available, and we're going to keep growing this list. Scenarios that we're trying to support besides integrated experiences, like you were mentioning, is we also have a lot of customers that are fairly large and have come up with ways to automate some of the repeatable processes, some of the repetitive notions. So this will help block both customers that want to build integrated experiences with some of the third-party tools, some of our partners, and also help automate some of the flow to be able to scale. Exciting.
Fantastic. I wanted to ask Roberto, when we look at the organization and how policies and MIP, I mean, we've talked about eDiscovery, there's a lot of moving parts here. Specifically when you're putting MIP policies into the organization and you're doing that inspection and you're looking for files, you're looking for sensitive information in the organization, are there implications to SharePoint's kind of new syntax technologies? Is anything that we've got to change architecturally?
Yeah, and I think what you're referring to is basically what we were talking about, the integration that we announced between governance and SharePoint Syntax, and how we actually are we're working together to make sure that all the goodness that SharePoint team has announced actually is supported and can enhance. And today it'll be able to apply as soon as it goes generally available. It'll be able to apply retention labels. So it'll all work seamlessly within SharePoint. And so when you go in and you just publish a retention label to your content center where you're going to create a document understanding model in SharePoint Syntax. And then you can create your model just like any other SharePoint Syntax model to classify your data, extract data out of it. And in the settings of that model, where you can configure which content type it might apply and things like that, you will be able to select a retention label that you've published to that content center as the label that should be automatically applied to any document that Syntax detects of that type of classification. And so we're working on making sure that all of this is built into the productivity solutions that you're already using.
Fantastic. Nir, I'd love to come to you for this next question. Great question from the audience. When you're looking at DLP in the organization, and a lot of organizations are still hybrid right now. They're moving to the cloud, or they've moved the bulk of their data to the cloud, but oftentimes there's still SharePoint farms, things like that on premise. Is it possible to add DLP to on-premise SharePoint 2013? How do you deal with that hybrid scenario?
Yeah, thank you for this, Wayne. So we talked about DLP and server-side DLP that are sitting in the cloud, and we talked about endpoint DLP. But with that, we are expanding our DLP offering into two more domains. One is for non-Microsoft Cloud capabilities with Cloud App Security, that this is something that is available already in private preview. And another private preview that we plan to start next month is about expanding our DLP offering into on-premise capabilities, which is based on the AAP scanner technology that already know to scan and discover sensitive information and label them in SharePoint on-prem and in on-premise repositories, and discovers SharePoint 2013 and 2016. And with that, we are leveraging the same technology into DLP capabilities to detect sensitive information and to ensure that it doesn't overshare, the access for this information is indeed controlled, and to ensure DLP capabilities based on this data, which is not just applying labels and encryption to these type of files. So this is something that is coming in private preview very soon, and it's part of the Microsoft Information Protection and Compliance preview community, where we are announcing such previews as they are starting.
Fantastic. Sanjay, I'd love to go to you for a question around Microsoft Information Protection that's come up a couple of times so far at Ignite. Information protection continues to change. It continues to evolve. As we think about some of the answers that you gave earlier on about how AIP has become MIP, we're executing on the MIP vision. What are some of the differences in Microsoft's vision versus the vision of some of our competitors, or some other applications that the customer might need to use?
Yeah, no, I'll keep it pretty tight, right? I mean, I think the big difference, if you think about it, there are two key pain points that we see customers sort of struggling with. One is no customer wants to deal with 10 solutions. And today, it's very common for customers to have that patchwork. So we are driven by the desire to sort of be able to give a much more comprehensive solution. So if you see even our own effort to provide built-in labeling, luckily as Microsoft, we are able to then built in that protection experience into those core productivity workloads, right? And that really is stretching every day. We're adding more, like every passing month. So it's not just Office apps, M365 services, now Power BI. And then the other big pivot that I want to talk about is being able to bring machine learning and automation to really bear. And that's something that we are very focused on to help customers really scale their data protection program. And then the third piece is that ability to unify and bring all your controls into one dashboard and make the life of the admins a lot easier. So those are things that motivate us.
Fantastic. As we're entering into the last minute here, a few things I'd like to bring to the attention of the attendees. There are many sessions still coming up at Ignite on Microsoft 365 compliance. Also, there are new learning paths which have been made available for insider risk, information protection and governance, as well as discover and respond. the Compliance Manager is one of the big announcements for this year's Ignite. If you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, check out the blog entries as well as the new microsite that's been put up on the website, and perhaps use a trial in your organization to test out Compliance Manager. With that, well, thank you for attending. We'll stay on for a few minutes and answer some questions in the Q&A log, but enjoy some of the other sessions at Ignite.